Hi, my name is Katie, a narrator for Eagle Tales Studio. I'm here to entertain and narrate this interesting story as I am authorized to. Sit back, subscribe, and enjoy. The night Jung Sweb's men came for him, Kwon did not run. He stood in the rain-soaked alley behind Itaewon, his hands open at his sides, and he looked the enforcer directly in the eye. "I will pay what my wife owes," he said, "every coin." What the enforcers did not know, what no one knew, was that the debt belonged to a woman who had already decided she was done with Kwon. She had already counted him out. She had already chosen her new life. And Kwon was about to bleed for it. But before this story goes any further, I need you to do something. Not for me, for yourself. Because what you are about to witness is not a simple love story. It is not a tale of a good man who made poor choices. What you are about to see is the portrait of a woman who was handed everything: loyalty, sacrifice, devotion, and chose, deliberately, to burn it all to the ground. And what Kwon did in response? No one saw it coming. Not Jung Soeb, not Monica, not the people who watched and said nothing. If you are not already subscribed to this channel, hit that button right now and turn on your notifications. This story does not slow down, and you cannot afford to miss a single second of what comes next. Stay with me. Let's begin. Seoul, South Korea, a city that never truly sleeps. A city where the distance between wealth and desperation can be measured in a single city block, where fortunes are built in a season and destroyed in a night, and where the debts of one person have a way of becoming the burden of another. Kwon Jae-hyun was not a man who was born into trouble. He was a man who walked into it willingly, with his eyes open and his heart in his hands. He had met Monica Mouton 3 years before the story begins. She was a graduate student at Yonsei University, studying international business on a scholarship that was running dry. She was brilliant. She was fierce. She wore her natural hair loose and walked through the marble corridors of that university like she was already the person she intended to become. Kwon saw her on a Tuesday in October, standing outside a convenience store in Sinchon, counting coins in her palm. He bought her coffee. He did not know that small act of kindness was the first step into a world that would nearly destroy him. Kwon Jae-hyun had grown up in Mapo-gu, in a household that was neither rich nor poor, but existed in the careful, deliberate middle, the kind of middle that required discipline to maintain. His father had been a mid-level bank clerk. His mother had run a small tteokbokki stall near the local market. They had given him exactly what their means allowed: an education, a sense of duty, and the unspoken rule that a man who could not take care of his own was no man at all. After university, Kwon worked as a junior logistics coordinator for a mid-sized import company in Yeongdeungpo. The pay was not generous, but it was steady. He lived alone in a small one-room apartment in Mapo, rode the subway to work, cooked his own meals, and saved methodically. He was not searching for anything in particular. Then came Monica. Their first conversation lasted 4 hours. They sat in a small cafe in Sinchon as the rain hit the windows, and she told him about Johannesburg, the city she had come from, the family she had left behind, the scholarship that was supposed to be her bridge to a different kind of future. She spoke with the kind of directness that Kwon had never encountered in someone he had just met. She did not perform shyness. She did not soften her opinions. She looked at him the way very few people had ever bothered to look at him, as if he were genuinely worth understanding. They were together within a month. For the first year, they were happy in the way that people are happy when everything is still new and difficulty has not yet arrived to test what they actually mean to each other. Monica's scholarship was renewed. Kwon got a small promotion. They moved into a slightly larger apartment together in Mapo, a place with 2 windows that caught the afternoon light and a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in. Monica cooked on weekends, dishes she had learned from her grandmother in Cape Town, flavors Kwon had never tasted. He learned to say the names of things: umkushul, Boboti, malva pudding. He said them badly, and she laughed every time. He learned what it meant to love a person, and not just a version of them. Then the scholarship ended. Monica's visa was tied to her enrollment. Without funding, she had 3 months before her legal right to remain in Korea expired. She had applied for 6 extension scholarships. All 6 had rejected her. The morning the last rejection letter arrived, she sat at the kitchen table and did not cry. She looked at the letter the way she looked at things that had already been decided, with a stillness that was either acceptance or something colder that Kwon could not yet read. "I can support us," Kwon said, "while you find a solution." She looked at him. "It is not your problem to solve." "You are my partner," he said. "Your problem is mine." She studied him for a long time. Then she nodded once. "Okay," she said, "but I will pay you back, every coin." She meant it when she said it. Kwon believed her completely. He went back to the import company and asked for more hours. They gave him logistics shifts that began before sunrise. He picked up a second job at a small moving company that operated weekends. He woke at 5 in the morning and came home after 9 at night. He ate quickly, showered, and was asleep before Monica had finished studying. He never complained. He never tallied what he was spending. He never placed the weight of it on her shoulders. Monica was enrolled in a self-funded extension program at Yonsei. It was expensive, nearly 4 times what her scholarship had covered. Kwon paid it in installments, eating into the savings he had built over 3 careful years. He did not tell her how much was left. He did not want her to worry. What Kwon did not know, what Monica had not told him, was that her visa extension was not secure. The university's administration had flagged an irregularity in her original scholarship paperwork. The resolution required a payment to a processing agency that operated in the gray space between official bureaucracy and something less legitimate. That agency had ties to Jung Soo-eb. Monica had handled the payment herself, quietly, believing it was a routine administrative fee. She had not understood what she was signing. She had not understood what kind of organization she was paying. When the first follow-up demand arrived, 3 times the original amount, Monica did not tell Kwon. She paid it from the household savings without telling him. When the second demand arrived, 5 times the first, she had nothing left. She went to Kwon then, not with the full truth, but with a number. "I need money," she said. "I owe someone. It is complicated. I cannot explain it fully." Kwon looked at her. He did not press her. He did not demand the full story. "How much?" he asked. She told him. He was quiet for a moment. "Give me a few days," he said. He already knew where he was going. Jung Soo-eb operated out of a restaurant in Itaewon that looked from the street like any other Korean-Chinese fusion establishment. The menus were printed, the staff wore uniforms, the food was good by all accounts, but no one who understood Seoul went there to eat. Jung Soo-eb was not a man who announced himself loudly. He was in his mid-50s, compact, soft-spoken in a way that was more unsettling than any raised voice could be. He wore simple clothes, dark trousers, plain shirts, and had the manner of a man who had never needed to prove anything to anyone, because everyone already understood. His organization controlled 3 specific things in that district of Seoul: debt collection, protection, and the kind of document facilitation that universities and visa offices sometimes, inadvertently, relied upon. Monica's payment had gone through a subcontractor who was connected to Jung Soo-eb's network without Monica knowing it. The original fee had been legitimate. What came after was not. Kwon sat across from Jung Soo-eb in the back room of that restaurant on a Thursday evening and laid out what he was offering clearly. He would work off the debt. Not in cash, he did not have enough cash. He would work. Logistics, transport, whatever the organization needed moved from one place to another. Clean runs only. He said this with the kind of directness that suggested he knew the difference and was not offering to cross it. Jung-soob had studied him for a long time. Most people who came to that back room came frightened. Kwon came calm. Jung-soob respected that, the way a man who had spent his life measuring people respected the rare case of someone who was not performing bravery, but actually had it. 18 months, Jung-soob said. 12, Kwon replied. A pause. 15, Jung-soob said. And you do not ask what is in the packages. Agreed. Kwon worked on Jung-soob's runs for 15 months. He drove sealed crates from warehouses in Incheon to drop points in Gangnam. He picked up packages from addresses that changed weekly and left them at locations he was given by text message 30 minutes in advance. He never opened anything. He never asked anything. He arrived on time, completed the run, and left. He never told Monica what he was doing. He told her he had found a second job, night delivery contracts for a courier firm that paid well. She accepted this without much inquiry. He noticed that. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he noted that she had not pressed him, had not asked which company, had not asked to see the contract. He told himself she was busy. She was under pressure. It was understandable. He carried the weight alone, the way he had always carried things, quietly, methodically, without placing it on anyone else. But the weight was heavier than he had acknowledged. There were nights when Kwon sat in his car outside a drop point in the dark, waiting for a message, and felt the specific loneliness of a man who has made himself disappear into the service of someone else's life. He thought about what he was doing. He thought about what it said about who he was. He told himself it was temporary. 15 months, he said to himself, is not a lifetime. You can carry this for 15 months. You can protect her for 15 months. After that, the debt is gone, the danger is gone, and the two of you can build something clean from the beginning. He held on to that thought the way a man in deep water holds onto a rope, not because he is certain it will save him, but because letting go is not an option he has considered. Monica, during those 15 months, was changing. She obtained her visa extension. Her enrollment was secured. She began attending networking events, industry panels, business conferences. She was building something, a version of herself that existed in Seoul's international business circles, a version that was polished and purposeful and increasingly distant from the small Mapo apartment and the man who came home smelling of night air and effort. She began dressing differently. She began speaking of the future with a specificity that did not always include Kwon. She mentioned a colleague named Director Yu, a senior executive at the company where she had landed a junior consultancy placement. She mentioned him with the kind of casualness that people use when they are trying to make something unremarkable. Kwon noticed. He did not say anything. He was 2 months from the end of Jung-soob's 15-month agreement. He told himself, 2 more months. Just carry it 2 more months. Now, I know some of you right now are sitting up straighter in your seats. Some of you have put down your snacks. A few of you have gone completely still, like a person who just realized they locked their keys inside the car. Good. That means you understand exactly what is happening. If you are watching this anywhere other than this channel, go find the original. Like, subscribe. Because what is coming next? Even I needed a moment. The 15 months ended on a Wednesday. Kwon drove back from his final run for Jung-soob's network, parked the car outside the Itaewon restaurant, walked in, and sat down across from the older man one last time. Jung-soob slid a folded paper across the table. A clean receipt. The debt, cleared in full. You kept your word, Jung-soob said. He sounded almost surprised. I said I would, Kwon replied. Jung-soob looked at him with the expression of a man who had seen many people make promises in that back room and had watched most of them unravel. Your wife, he said. Does she know what you did for her? No, Kwon said. Will you tell her? Kwon thought about that. When the time is right, he said. He walked out of that restaurant into the early evening light of Itaewon, feeling lighter than he had in over a year. The city moved around him, the delivery motorbikes weaving between cars, the tourists taking photographs, the restaurant workers rolling trolleys of vegetables from supplier vans. He bought a small bunch of flowers from a stall near the subway entrance. He went home. Monica was not there. She came in at 11 that night, a little flushed, her good coat on. She said she had been at a work dinner. She pecked him on the cheek, set her bag down, and took out her phone. "We should talk about our future," Kwon said. She looked up from her phone. "Soon," she said. "I'm tired tonight." He put the flowers in a glass of water and went to bed. Over the following weeks, Monica became a series of small absences. She was home less. She attended more events, rooftop gatherings, business dinners, launch parties for firms Kwon had never heard of. She began referring to her world and his world as if they were distinct territories that happened to share an apartment. She brought home expensive food, good wine, flowers she had bought herself. She was spending money that Kwon did not fully understand the source of. The junior consultancy placement did not pay what her lifestyle now suggested. He did not ask. He did not ask because somewhere inside him, in the place where honest self-knowledge lives, he already understood that the answer would require a response he was not yet ready to give. He caught fragments of conversations. A name, Director Yu, appeared again, more frequently. She spoke of him with the tone that people use when they are describing someone whose opinion matters to them more than they want to admit. One evening, Kwon came home to find a second phone on the kitchen counter, an expensive model, different brand from her usual one. She picked it up quickly when she saw him and said, without meeting his eyes, that her company had issued it. He nodded. He made dinner. He did not say what he was thinking. What he was thinking was, "I spent 15 months in the dark for you. I sat in a car outside warehouses in the middle of the night so that your visa would remain valid, so that your life in this country would be safe. I did not tell you because I did not want to burden you. And now you are standing in this kitchen holding a second phone that your company did not issue, and you cannot look at me." He put the food on the table. "Eat before it gets cold," he said. She sat down. They ate in silence. The silence between them had changed. In the early years, silence between Kwon and Monica had been comfortable. The silence of two people who did not need to fill every moment with words. Now it was the silence of two people who had things to say that neither was willing to be the first to speak. The change happened slowly enough that if you had asked either of them to name the exact moment it began, neither could have pinpointed it. But Kwon felt it. He felt it in the way she laughed at her phone and then angled the screen away from him. He felt it in the way she stopped asking about his day. He felt it in the way she began, subtly and then not so subtly, to speak about her future in a language that did not have a "we" in it. He carried it, because carrying things was what he had always done. He told himself, she is under pressure, she is building her career, this will pass. But he knew, in the honest place, that it would not pass. Monica's firm offered her a full-time senior consultancy position. The day she received the offer letter, she came home early and told Kwon. He stood in the kitchen and listened. He watched her face, the brightness in it, the certainty, the sense of arrival. He had seen that face before, years ago, when she had sat across from him in that cafe in Shincheon and talked about who she intended to become. He loved that face. He had worked 15 months in the dark to protect the woman behind it. "This is everything you worked for," he said. She smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes the way it used to. "It is," she said. "And Kwon, I've been thinking, we need to have a real conversation about where we are going. He felt the cold of it before she said another word. I have a new life now, Monica said. Her voice was steady, rehearsed perhaps, or perhaps simply resolved. Director Yu's firm, the people I work with, they are at a different level. The events I attend, the circles I move in, everything is different now. I know, Kwan said. I am proud of you. You don't understand, she said. It is not about being proud. It is about fit. About the kind of life I am building. And I don't think... She stopped. He waited. I don't think you fit that life anymore, Kwan. The kitchen was very quiet. I was at a senior partner dinner last month, she continued. They asked about my partner. And I told them you worked in logistics. And the way they looked, I saw it. I could see how they placed it, where they put you in their assessment of who I was. And I hated it. I hated feeling that way, but I cannot unfeel it. Kwan looked at her for a long time. You felt ashamed of me, he said. Not a question. She said nothing. After everything, he said. And his voice was quiet, not broken, not angry, but the voice of a man naming a thing he had hoped he would never have to name. After 15 months of... He stopped himself. He did not tell her about Jong Sueb. Not then. After everything I did so that you could be standing in this kitchen with that offer letter in your hand. You are a good man, she said. But good is not enough. Not for where I am going. Monica, I'm sorry, Kwan. She set the letter on the counter. I'm moving into a new apartment. I signed the lease already. I leave at the end of the month. She walked past him to the bedroom. He stood in the kitchen. He did not follow her. He picked up the offer letter from the counter. He read it slowly. The title, the package, the firm name. He set it back down carefully. He thought about the 15 months. He thought about the crates in Incheon. He thought about the nights he had sat in a parked car in the dark and told himself, 2 more months. Just carry it 2 more months. He went to the window and looked out at Seoul. The city was the same as it had always been. Indifferent, brilliant, relentless. He stood there for a long time. Then he made dinner, enough for 2, the way he always had, and left Monica's portion covered on the table with a note that said only, eat before it gets cold. He went for a long walk. He walked along the Han River in the dark, the lights of the city reflecting on the water, and he let himself feel the full weight of it, not the anger, not the bitterness, but the simpler and more devastating grief of a person who had been completely honest in their love and had discovered that honesty was not enough. He walked until the cold made his hands numb. Then he went back. Monica was already asleep. He sat at the kitchen table alone and ate dinner in the silence of a home that had already been quietly vacated by the person who had once made it feel like home. Monica left on a Friday morning. She had arranged for a moving company, a real one, professional, with a truck and 2 uniformed men who arrived at 8 o'clock and carried her things out with the quiet efficiency of people who understood they were doing a job that carried a story they were not part of. Kwan was home. He did not offer to help. She did not ask him to. He sat at the kitchen table and drank tea and watched through the open bedroom door as the men dismantled the version of the life they had built together into boxes and carried it down the stairs. Monica came to him before she left. She stood in the kitchen doorway in the good coat she had bought herself 6 months ago. Her hair was done. She looked, by every external measure, like the person she had worked to become. I will have my lawyers send the paperwork, she said. It will be clean. I don't want complications. He looked at her. Do you know what I was doing? He said quietly. For the 15 months before you got your visa extension? A pause. You said you were doing night deliveries. No, he said. I was working off a debt to Jong-sub. The debt from your visa payment. The agency you used, the one you didn't look closely enough at. I sat across from Jong-sueb in that back room in Itaewon, and I agreed to run his logistics for 15 months so that your paperwork would be cleared, your enrollment would be secured, and you would never have to know what you had accidentally walked into. Monica was very still. I am telling you this, Kwon said, not so that you feel guilty. I made that choice freely. I would make it again. I am telling you because I think you should know the full truth of what you are walking away from. Not a man who works in logistics, a man who spent 15 months in the dark for you. She stood in the doorway. He watched her face. Something moved across it, a complicated thing. Not quite remorse, not quite recognition, but the closest thing to both she had allowed herself in months. Then she picked up the last of her bags. I'm sorry, she said. Truly. She left. The door closed. Kwon sat in the kitchen for a long time. The apartment was very empty and very quiet. Stripped of Monica's things, it felt smaller, not because it actually was smaller, but because the space had always expanded to contain whatever she brought into it. He washed the teacup. He dried it. He put it back in the cupboard. He went to work. That first week without Monica was not dramatic. It was simply quiet in the particular way that comes after something significant has been removed. A quiet that had a shape to it, that occupied space in the way that a thing does when it is conspicuously absent. He worked his usual hours. He ate simply. He slept. On Thursday of that week, Jung-sub called him. Kwon almost did not answer. I heard, Jung-sueb said when Kwon picked up. About the woman. It is handled, Kwon said. You are well? Yes. A long pause. I have a proposition, Jung-sueb said. Nothing like before, legal. I have a logistics consultancy that needs a director, someone with your competence and your discretion. I pay well. Better than well. Kwon was quiet. Why me? He asked. Because I watched you for 15 months, Jung-sueb said. And in 15 months, I never once had to question your judgment. Do you know how rare that is? Kwon looked out the window at the city. I need 2 days, he said. He took one. Wait. Let me make sure you heard what just happened. The man who spent 15 months doing the unthinkable, quietly, without complaint, for a woman who just packed her good coat and walked out, just got a phone call. Some of you already know what this means. The rest of you are about to find out. Like, subscribe, comment, I knew it, if you were already there. Kwon took the position with Jung-sub's consultancy on one condition. Clean operations only, he said. Nothing I cannot put my name on. Jung-sub studied him. You know what I am, he said. I know what you were, Kwon said. I know what this firm is supposed to be. If those two things are the same, tell me now, and I will leave. Jung-sub was quiet for a long time. He had built his fortune in the gray spaces between the law and the market. He was not young anymore. He had grown tired in recent years of the constant vigilance that the other parts of his operations required, the payments to officials, the management of men who made poor decisions under pressure, the paperwork that existed in coded language to disguise what it actually was. He had been quietly restructuring for 3 years. The consultancy was real. The clients were real. He needed someone to run it who had the temperament and the skill to make it genuinely legitimate. He needed someone who did not frighten easily, did not compromise under social pressure, and understood logistics at a level that could not be faked. He had watched Kwon for 15 months. Agreed, Jung-sueb said. Kwon walked into Jung-sueb's legitimate consultancy as its director and discovered quickly that he was extraordinarily good at it. He was not good at it in the way of someone who had found an unexpected talent. He was good at it in the way of someone who had spent years doing the real version of the work, in conditions that left no room for error, and now found himself operating in the same field with resources and authority and the ability to actually do it correctly. Within 8 months, he had restructured the firm's client portfolio. Within a year, 3 major international logistics firms had contracted with them. Within 18 months, Jung Soeb had handed him a stake in the business. Kwon did not announce any of this. He moved into a larger apartment. Clean, quiet, good light, a kitchen that had enough room to actually cook in. He bought new clothes, not because he wanted to signal anything to anyone, but because the old ones had worn through, and he was, finally, in a position to replace them without calculating whether he could afford to. He did not post on social media. He did not call Monica. But he heard things. He heard that Monica's senior consultancy position, which had seemed so secure when she walked out of his kitchen in her good coat, had become complicated. Director Yu, the man whose orbit she had entered and whose opinion had become more important to her than the truth of what Kwon had done for her, had been revealed to have structured the junior consultant program in a way that benefited his own interests considerably. The ethics review had been quiet, but consequential. Monica had not been implicated, but Director Yu's protection of her position had evaporated along with his own standing. She had been moved to a junior role. She had kept the expensive apartment, barely. He heard these things not because he was looking for them, but because Seoul, for all its scale, has the information habits of a smaller place, and people who knew both of them had a tendency to tell him things without being asked. He listened. He said nothing in return. He went back to work. There was one other thing Kwon did during those 18 months that no one knew about. He had learned, through Jung Soob's network, the remnants of the old infrastructure, now used for legitimate intelligence, that the processing agency through which Monica's original visa payment had been made had subsequently been used to facilitate similar arrangements for several other foreign nationals studying in Seoul. The agency operated in a legal gray area that had been deliberately maintained for years. Kwon documented it. He passed it to a contact at the Seoul Metro Police Financial Crimes Unit, not through an official channel, not under his own name, but cleanly and completely. He did it because it was the right thing to do. He did not expect anything in return. What he did not know when he made that call was that the investigation that followed would take 2 years and would, at its conclusion, touch the firm where Monica worked. 2 years after Monica left, Kwon Jae-hyun was not recognizable as the man who had sat alone at that kitchen table washing a teacup. He was still the same person, the same quietness, the same deliberateness, the same unwillingness to perform anything he did not feel. But the weight he had carried for so long was gone, and in its absence, the person underneath had become fully visible. Jung Soeb's consultancy was now a firm of 60 people, 3 offices, Seoul, Singapore, and a new outpost in Dubai that Kwon had opened after securing a contract with a Gulf shipping consortium. The firm had been featured twice in Korean business media, with a level of respect that Jung Soeb, at his age, received with the quiet satisfaction of a man watching a long and complicated story arrive at a good ending. Kwon was 34 years old. He lived in a penthouse apartment in Mapo-gu, not because he needed to signal success, but because the Mapo-gu address had been a deliberate choice. He had grown up in that district. He had ridden the same subway line to school, to university, to his first job. He bought the apartment as a statement to himself. This is where I am from. This is where I remain. His mother came to see it on a Sunday and stood at the floor-to-ceiling window looking out at the Han River and said nothing for a long time. Then she said, "Your father would have been proud." He cooked her his version of her tteokbokki, not as good as hers, but close enough, and they ate together at the table, the city spread out below them in the afternoon light. He did not tell her about Jung Soeb. He did not tell her about the 15 months in the dark. He did not tell her about Monica. Some things, he had decided, were his alone. The investigation that Kwon had quietly initiated 2 years earlier reached its conclusion during this time. The processing agency was dismantled. Its principals were charged. 3 affiliated firms were named in the indictment, among them the consultancy where Monica now worked. The firm was not charged directly, but the senior partners who had maintained relationships with the agency were suspended pending investigation. Director Yu was among them. Monica was not suspended, but the firm's restructuring left her position, already a junior one, effectively redundant. She was given a severance package and 3 months' notice. She was, at the same time, dealing with the reality that the expensive apartment she had taken when she left Kwon required a monthly rent that her reduced income could not sustain. Kwon knew all of this. He had not arranged any of it. He had simply set one thing in motion, the report to the Financial Crimes Unit, and the rest had followed its own logic. He thought about that sometimes. About the way that truth, once given the space to move, has a tendency to move exactly as far as it needs to. He thought about Monica, not with anger, not with satisfaction, with something more complicated than either, a kind of recognition, and beneath it, the quiet remnant of a grief that had not fully resolved. He had loved her honestly. He had not stopped loving the person he had known, even as the person she had become had made choices he could not reconcile. He wondered if she thought about him. He wondered if she knew yet the full extent of what he had done. He did not reach out. He waited. Some of you have been waiting for this part since the first 30 seconds. You have been patient, admirably patient. You knew the tide was turning. You could feel it coming the way you feel thunder before the rain actually arrives. All I will say is, when it arrives, it is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is something far better. Monica Mouton came to find Kwon on a Tuesday in November. She had gotten his office address through a mutual contact, a woman they had both known from the Sinchon days, who had bumped into Kwon at an industry event and mentioned, carefully, that Monica had been asking. He had not gone to her. He had waited. He was in his office on the 61st floor of a tower in Yeongdong-po when his assistant told him a woman was in the lobby asking for him by name. He asked his assistant to send her up. Monica walked into his office and stopped. The office was not ostentatious. Clean lines, large windows, the Han River visible from the corner. A desk that was uncluttered, a small table to one side where 2 chairs sat. On the desk, visible from the door, was a single photograph, the 2 of them in the cafe in Sinchon on a rainy afternoon. She had given it to him early in their relationship as a joke, proof, she had said, of how it had all started. He had kept it. She looked at the photograph. Then she looked at him. He wore a dark suit that fit him the way clothes fit a person who has finally been measured correctly. He was calm. He was the calmest she had ever seen him. "Kwon," she said. "Monica," he said. "Sit down." She sat. He did not offer coffee. He did not make her wait. He simply looked at her with the kind of clarity that comes from a person who has processed their pain fully and is no longer defined by it. "You know what happened at the firm," she said. "Yes." "Did you—" She stopped. "I reported the processing agency to Financial Crimes 2 years ago," he said, "because it was the right thing to do. What followed was their investigation, not mine." She absorbed this. "I wanted to come and—" She stopped again. Her hands were together in her lap. "I wanted to say that I understand now. What you told me that last morning. What you were doing during those 15 months. "Yes," he said. "I didn't believe you," she said. "Or, I believed you, but I didn't let myself understand what it meant. What it would have cost you. What it would have taken. He said nothing. I was ashamed of you, she said. And it was wrong. It was a wrong I cannot unmake. He was quiet for a moment. I know, he said. And I think, if I am honest, I always understood it. Not accepted it, but understood it. The world you were entering, the way it operates, the weight it places on appearances. I understood what it asked of you. That does not mean what you did was right. No, she said. It wasn't. The 15 months, he said. Jongseob, the runs, all of it. I would make the same choices again. Not because I was right to carry it alone. I should have told you. I kept it from you because I thought you did not need to carry it with me. That was my mistake. I gave you a version of our life that I had made safe without telling you the cost. Monica looked at him. Her eyes were wet. What do we do now? She asked. Kwon stood. He walked to his desk and picked up a small object, a key on a plain ring. He set it on the table between them. She looked at it. That is the key to the Mapo apartment, he said, the original one. I kept the tenancy. I don't know why. Perhaps I always thought there would be a day when I would need to make a decision about it. She picked up the key. It is not an answer, he said. It is not an offer of what we were. It is a question about what we might, honestly and carefully, become. She closed her hand around the key. Seoul continued the way it always does. The Han River moved in the dark. The neon lights of Itaewon flickered above the street. Somewhere in Mapo, a key turned in a lock. There is a thing that people sometimes say when they want to avoid the full weight of what loyalty actually costs. That a good person will always be rewarded, that the universe keeps its own accounts. That what goes around comes around. Kwon would tell you that none of that is true. He would tell you that he spent 15 months in the dark and nearly lost everything that mattered to him. That he sat alone at a kitchen table and washed a single teacup and went to work the next morning. That the reward did not arrive on a schedule, and it did not arrive because the universe is fair. It arrived because he kept moving. Because he did not allow what was done to him to become the defining fact of who he was. Because loyalty, real loyalty, is not something you perform for someone else. It is something you refuse to abandon in yourself. Subscribe and comment below. What was the moment that changed everything for you?